All right. Everybody wants to tell a little bird that's cool. Cool. All right. Good morning. So we'll start with an intro because we're usually terrible with that. I'm Sarah, and I won't point because I always get it wrong, but the other half here is Cristina, and we are from One Woman Shop, which is a resource hub and community for female solo business owners. Hi to Dana. I see you up there. If you want to chat in with where you're coming from, that would be awesome. But Cristina, do you want to just kind of introduce the topic today, and then I'll kind of give you a lead in?
Yeah, absolutely. So today we had a little bit of trouble naming this blab because we could go in a lot of different directions, but we basically ended up calling it Bridge Jobs. So if you aren't familiar with the term bridge job, it's basically a job you get to support yourself as you grow a full-time business. So there was a specific reason we decided to take on this topic. So Sarah, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, so we often get emails from ladies who are thinking of starting a business or have started a business and are kind of at a stopping point, just looking for advice, which we obviously love because it teaches us how we can better help our one-woman shops. But this particular question kind of lit a fire under us in terms of all these things we want to talk about. And it was kind of funny because Cristina got it, sends it to me and says, I'm not sure how to respond, but then in the process had written an entire response. So that's why I kind of want to let her jump on this first. But
apparently I do know how to respond.
So the question, I'm getting ready to be laid off for this season. I started thinking about working from home, but I don't really know where to begin. I don't have a lot of money to start out, so I'm not sure what my options are. I want to be successful, and I'm looking for guidance. So, Cristina, do you want to give us an idea of how you responded to that first?
Yes. So we sent back an email to this girl, and I think we sounded like total Debbie Downers. And I think in our email we said, we're not trying to be pessimistic, and we're not trying to sound like we don't advocate for business ownership, because obviously we do. But we're like, in our experience and in the experience of most of the women we work with, having a business that is profitable and sustainable takes a crap ton of time. And so I then added in that the biggest thing that has kept us going over the past 2 years running One Woman Shop is our passion. And Sarah and I are very quick to say we don't think business ownership is all about passion, because you have to be very reliable. You have to have a lot of other qualities that keep you going when your passion is faltering a little bit. But basically we said, had we just been looking to grow a business quickly and to be very profitable, it honestly would have been better for us to both find full-time jobs. And again, not to discourage business ownership. Obviously, we're huge advocates, but we just want to provide a realistic view of how long it can take to build an amazing business.
Right.
But then we basically had this epiphany about the in-between that can come in between starting this business and having it be your sole source of income. So do you want to jump a little bit into Bridge Jobs, Sarah?
Yeah, so the idea that, this person in particular would be laid off and solely work from home, that's kind of where we found the discrepancy of, well, you certainly can do that. Plenty of people have done that. But depending on what your priorities are and what your needs are right now, it is absolutely okay in the meantime, while you build that business from home, that you take a bridge job. And simply what we mean by a bridge job is a part-time job, even a full-time job that's going to hold you over, but it's only temporary, full-time contract work, whatever it might be, something that can hold you over in that interim when you do have rent to pay, and you have a family to provide for, and you have actual, bills to pay, priorities that have to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. So we do see a lot of one-woman shops that feel just almost ashamed to go that route. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. Like they're frauds and like they're not real business owners, for sure.
Right. To which we, one of our major points, and I don't mean to like jump in super far real fast, but we always advocate that it is not all or nothing. Mm-hmm. Just because you are working part-time at a coffee shop or a bookstore or babysitting or whatever you might be doing on the side does not mean that you are not a one-woman shop building a solo business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's our tweetable. If we were Marie Forleo, that would be our tweetable.
Right.
Well,
Right.
so I wanted to give another example because we also think about this example when we talk about bridge jobs and about how they're okay. We had another One Woman Shop member who posted in our members only Facebook group that she was in a pretty rough financial situation. Was having kind of trouble paying basic bills. And so we responded, but it was also really cool to see the way that the other members responded and basically said, when you are working from a place of financial stress, you're not going to be effective. So we have a lot of sub points on that point. But also just, let's see, where was I going to go with that one? Yeah, I don't know. You can take over now because I just completely thought.
Well, so I think that we saw not only are you working from a place of, I don't necessarily want to use like desperation, but a place where you can't really make sound decisions because you do have needs that have to be taken care of. Yeah. The other side of it is that sometimes having that bridge job gives you the structure you need to build your business when you're not there. So I know that was one of your main points. Do you want to kind of talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in a lot of different places, and I know you have as well, where I have been running a business full time, or I've been working a side job, maybe related, maybe completely unrelated. And I have found sometimes, not always, when you are running a business full time and you don't have very concrete goals, or very concrete offerings, you sit down at the beginning of the day and you look at your to-do list, and then it's 5 p.m. and you have no idea where your time went, and you just kind of find yourself floundering a little bit because you don't have any structure. So obviously if you are going to work on a business full time, which we're not advocating against, there are a lot of strategies for having, a very structured schedule that makes you stay on track. But I think one of the biggest benefits, as you pointed out, of having a side job is, it gets you up in the morning, it gets you out of the house, it gets you dressed. And so those are huge benefits that we see. But do you want to talk about some of the other benefits that you and I have both experienced?
Yeah. And just to touch on that structured schedule a little bit more, when I started my solo business, I was still working full time in my nonprofit job. And it was a shock to me that when I did take my solo business full time and I had the full day ahead of me, I was way less productive because before I knew the succinct amount of hours I had before I went into my full-time job, when I got home, on the weekend, whenever it was, I knew exactly how much time I had. And so I made the most of it. Suddenly when I had just days and weeks ahead of me, it was like, I've got time. And suddenly you lose that structure and it takes a little while to get that back. Yeah. So that's definitely a huge benefit.
It makes me think of one of our members, Jill, who responded to our prompt for the Road to Solopreneur Success blog tour. And we've just been compiling that ebook. That was a little shameless plug, that ebook. But in her post, she points out her mom always said as she was growing up, she was so much more productive when she was busy. And I think that you are like that. I'm like that. Obviously, there's a limit where you get into the insanity side of things, but a lot of having structure can be awesome.
Yeah, definitely a threshold there. So another really sound benefit of having a job to hold you over while you're building your business is that, and I think this is a huge one for me, and I know it must be for you, is that you have the potential to learn so much from that bridge job, no matter what it is. So to give you an example, when I was working for a job that I really wanted this full-time job, I knew it wasn't going to pay very well, so I knew I had to do something else. So I wasn't necessarily building my business, but I still kind of consider this a bridge job to help me work on the job I wanted. So I was babysitting twice a week, but then I was also doing local wine tastings for a Finger Lakes winery. So I would have their wine shipped to me, and then I would go and set up in stores around my town and offer people wine samples. And just looking at that, some days I was really ashamed because I'm like, I have an MBA, I have a full-time job, and yet like these people probably see me as like this teenager who is just here like sloughing off wine samples on people and then taking the wine home and drinking the rest of it on a Friday night.
Did you do that now?
Obviously.
Well, I do assume you did that.
Of course. But really what I got out of that was, now I look back and I'm like, I could have really went into that with like, I'm just here for the 3 hours because I needed this extra $75 or whatever it was. But the people skills I picked up from that, because you would think that that is the easiest job in the world, to just give people wine samples. No, 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 no. Some people are really offended when you try to give them wine samples. So I learned a lot about how to kind of figure out what people wanted and what people needed. But I also learned how to upsell. And I hate sales, but this was a fantastic opportunity to look at giving somebody something for free and then suddenly selling them 2 to 3 bottles of wine. Because obviously that's why the wineries put me there. So that, just looking at these opportunities and saying, like, what does wine have to do with, wine has a lot to do with building a solo business, actually. What does this particular bridge job have to do with what I'm really aiming to do in the long term? Well, I could look at it and pull out at least 5 lessons that I learned that do help me now. So if you go in with that attitude of, I can learn something from this that will help me in my solo business, in my entrepreneur efforts, then you can get a heck of a lot more out of it than just the financial security.
Definitely. Well, I have an example that's actually pretty similar. So I decided, like I said, I've had periods where I worked on my business full time. I've had periods where I was like, I really want structure and a boss. Sometimes you want a boss. And so honestly, I think that, just to point out 2 more benefits, having a boss sometimes is great, and having community around you with a bridge shop can be really, really valuable. So obviously we run an online community, but there is definitely something about an in-person community as well. But I decided a few years ago that I was going to look for a part-time job to have all those kind of side benefits. And I ended up taking this catering job at a pizza place, which was really funny because my joke was like, I'm a pizza delivery girl, which was only half of a joke. And so again, there's, you can feel a little bit like, wow, I'm slumming it. It sounds terrible, but I'm slumming it a little bit. But yeah, I learned incredible things. So I would go to different businesses and basically try to sell them on catering orders. And it's a sales job. So I think sales is a really important skill as a solopreneur. And then I learned so much about connecting with people, like you said, on what they want. So I would go to school and I would kind of eventually figure out that the headmaster's daughter was gluten-free. And we had amazing gluten-free pizza. And so it's like all of a sudden you now have your point of connection. And so I think we see that a lot, taking it back to One Woman Shop. We see that a lot with our business owners, is just like forming those personal connections is super important. And so, yeah, I think that you and I have both gotten that benefit from bridge jobs.
Yeah. And to expand on community a little bit, if you are in a position where at your bridge job, you can be really open about the fact that you are building a business, you have the potential to meet future clients, to meet future collaborators. I had one guy in particular that it was actually that wine job. He was the distributor. He has sent at least 2 to 3 contacts my way once he found out what I was doing. So it's certainly just another way to expand your network. And especially like as an online solopreneur, we don't get out all that often. A bridge job, if it is an actual physical location, gives you that really great exposure in person to keep those skills honed.
Definitely. Well, and I just wanted to say we focused more on the jobs that have very clear connections back to your solo business. But we also, when we were talking to our member in the Facebook group, people were giving different ideas, and 2 ideas that I immediately think of when I think of kind of easy ways to make money are babysitting and pet sitting. And I have been babysitting my whole life. And so it's something that just comes really naturally to me. And I feel like there's always a need. But
there are always babies.
There's always babies, as we know from our community, because everyone's having babies right now. Not us. Not us.
So I'm wearing a Guinness shirt.
So the point there is that maybe you can make a connection back to your solo business with babysitting. Like, kids are just like adults in some crazy ways. But it can also serve other purposes. For example, I used to babysit a little baby, and I would take the baby for an hour-long walk. Well, there you go. I've just gotten out of the house. And then I don't feel as bad when I sit down to work on my business for sitting at my desk all day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean the same like with pet sitting, with even if I've heard a lot of people talk about becoming drivers for Uber and Lyft, where you can obviously get really great people connections. But even when other people aren't involved, you're not selling anything. Looking at that time as, I'm walking dogs and I get this alone time. Like I can think. This is really nice. I'm not staring at a screen.
A wisdom walk.
Yes, there are always benefits, even if it takes a little longer to see the connection, basically.
Yeah. So I wanted to go into another point that we saw come up with our member who was talking about, her financial situation and her growing her business in the Facebook group, because I thought this was a very interesting point that I wouldn't have thought of. So basically she was saying that she really wanted to see her solo business grow. So therefore she needed to dedicate as much time and energy as possible, but she was also in this rocky situation. So another member who, I think I can just say Jess Lawler, who has really made a name for herself building a business while working full time. So she is like, when I think side hustler, she's often the first name that pops into my head. So hi, Jess. And so because she wakes up at the crack of dawn and she gets to work. And I'm almost positive it was Jess that commented in the group, just with 10 hours a week with your solo business, you can do amazing things. And so obviously you and I talk so much about efficiency and effectiveness and productivity, and we have an e-course coming out, another shameless plug, but you really can do amazing things in just 10 hours a week or even 5 hours a week.
Yeah. And I think, I'm sorry.
No, you did.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I think it goes back to, when I only had that amount of time, I was way more efficient, but it didn't have to be like that, because there were certainly days where I would spend the 2.5 hours before I went into work just reading blogs. And I'm kind of thinking, wow, I could get sucked down this rabbit hole and this could be all I do for 10 hours a week all summer, instead of actually making strides toward building a business. And so it really goes back to, and I think we can do an entire blab on basically like making the most of your time as a side hustler before you make that leap. But that's where it's important to say, what are the most important things that I can be doing to push my business forward? And that, that's at the time that I found connections like Jess Lawler. I downloaded your career priorities worksheet, and that led to me finding One Woman Shop and becoming part of One Woman Shop. So it's that during that time that you can really make the most of setting yourself up for success later if you use that time wisely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and so bringing it back, did you have anything else?
No, good.
I wanted to bring it back to this feeling of like you're a fraud, or maybe you're not a real business owner. And so I think it's safe to say that you and I see a lot of things and a lot of marketing out there that feels a little sleazy and a little inauthentic, to use a buzzword. So I actually am thinking of Rebecca Tracy's blog post about business coaches who like come from nothing, and then all of a sudden they have the solution to all your problems, and it just feels like very fake. And so I just wanted to, if you want to talk about that, the quote from Jenny.
Yeah. So, Coach Jenny, who's a big blabber, she wrote a post on this because she took a part-time, full-time, and then part-time, and then back to whatever, at the Container Store. And she did have that feeling of being a fraud.
Yeah.
But what she said is, those business people who are telling you that it is all or nothing, you need to make that leap. If you're not giving your business 110%, then you are not a business owner. Those people aren't responsible for paying your rent. Those people aren't providing for your family. They don't know the things that you have to take care of, and you have to put that stuff first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just goes back to, we always preach that business is not one size fits all. Right now, I think that it's very clear that people are building businesses as multi-passionates. They're bringing a lot to the table. Having bridge jobs can certainly help you explore hobbies that you want to explore, learn skills that you want to learn, while making money, and that can eventually benefit your solo business. So I think that's really the point we're trying to make, is it can actually be a really big help in your business.
Definitely. Well, so maybe this is a kind of a good wrap up, but you made all these notes about when you're in a good place financially. And obviously we're saying a lot of times a bridge job is what puts you in a good place financially. But you were talking about some of those benefits. So do you want to just kind of...
Yeah. So when you have that, and we've definitely seen this with our coaching clients too, that there's a very clear difference when you're working with people that are in a really comfortable place financially and aren't concerned with making this month's rent or paying this month's bill. And then the people that really do have those strong needs, I need to hit this amount by this date because of this. You see that the priorities kind of drive exactly what their actions have to be at this time. So when we look at it and we say, well, when you're in a good place financially, which we realize is not easy for everybody, you do have the room to experiment, to try new things with your business, to fail and to reiterate, because you're not worried about losing XYZ on this or wasting 3 weeks learning. You have the ability to work with the people that you want to work with, to take on clients that you're excited about. You have the ability to choose how you work, when you work. You just have a little bit more freedom. And obviously, that's always going to come with money. But that's kind of where we're saying that looking at the bridge job as allowing you that freedom to do a little bit more testing, more growing in your business is a really big benefit.
Yeah. And I just want to say on the flip side, because I want to make sure we're presenting both the positives and negatives and not just kind of preaching one way. But we have seen examples where because someone didn't have the financial motivation, it was almost kind of a more room for them to stall. So I just wanted to kind of make sure that we're not advocating for stalling, and we're not advocating for, like we always talk about, learning all of the things and not actually implementing them. We're not saying that that's the way to go. We're saying it's a fine line between stalling and being comfortable and taking things at the right pace.
Absolutely. And it really, I mean, it comes back to the type of person you are, the goals that you're going after. These are all basically obstacles that we're all going to face in different magnitude along the road. And it's really just one of those things that we just wanted to address, but we definitely know that it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. So do you want to tell our watchers about our episode next week?
Yes, I would. So we just released our ebook Prior to the Hire, which is basically, we had 51 different contributors across 11 categories talking with us about what they want you to know before you hire them. And so some examples, we have copywriters, we have virtual assistants, we have photographers, lawyers, accountants. So it's basically, if you're looking to hire anyone right now or in the near future, this ebook will kind of give you the information you need to have a good working relationship. So Sarah just put the link in the right-hand side. So it's onewomanshop.com/prior-to-the-hire.
I'm sure if you search prior to the hire, you will likely find it.
I guess I could have left it at that.
So we're here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern with our hot seat.
Yep. And so next week we'll be talking about Prior to the Hire and hopefully having some of those contributors join us. So thank you guys for being here, and we will see you next week.